Every 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime. But what if I told you the effects of abuse don't just stop with the bruises? They reach deep into your brain, changing the way you think, feel, and experience love forever. In fact, research shows that the brain can be rewired by abuse, causing lasting trauma that affects how you trust others, handle stress, and even how you see yourself. Here's a shocking fact: emotional abuse can actually shrink your brain. That's right, prolonged exposure to trauma has been shown to affect brain areas responsible for memory, emotion, and decision-making. Even worse, survivors often struggle with feelings of guilt and shame that prevent them from seeking help. But all hope isn't lost. The brain has an incredible ability to heal, and with the right tools, you can rewire your mind to experience love in a healthy, fulfilling way again. In this video, we'll explore the science behind abuse's impact on your brain, dive into the psychological games that hold you back, and reveal the strategies that will help you regain control. Stick around, your journey to emotional healing starts now. Chapter 1: The Hidden Scars. How abuse molds your mind. Abuse often leaves scars that can't be seen. These emotional wounds are deep and shape how we think, feel, and even perceive ourselves. The brain is incredibly adaptable, but constant abuse changes its structure. The stress that comes from emotional, physical, or mental abuse releases stress hormones like cortisol, which over time can damage the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory and emotional regulation. This makes it harder for victims to process feelings and form healthy relationships in the future. Research from the National Institute of Mental Health shows that prolonged exposure to stress can even shrink the hippocampus, leading to long-term emotional difficulties. Victims of abuse often feel disconnected from their own emotions. They may struggle with understanding what they feel or why they feel a certain way. This happens because abuse messes with the brain's emotional pathways. When you're constantly under stress, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes overactive, making it harder to distinguish between real threats and safe situations. Over time, this leads to anxiety and heightened fear responses. The feeling of not being enough is common among abuse survivors. This is because abuse undermines self-esteem and breeds self-doubt. A study published in Psychological Bulletin highlights that negative experiences, especially during childhood, can deeply affect self-worth. Over time, this makes it harder to trust others and believe in one's ability to be loved in healthy ways. The brain's negative thought patterns create a toxic cycle of self-criticism, making it tough to escape. The most significant part of healing comes from recognizing these invisible scars. By understanding how abuse changes the brain, you can start the process of rewiring these negative pathways. This is the first step to not only surviving but thriving after trauma. Chapter 2: Brain Chemistry Under Siege. How abuse alters your neurobiology. Our brain is like a powerful machine, constantly reacting to the world around us. When someone experiences abuse, this machine goes into overdrive. Chronic exposure to stress results in the constant release of cortisol, a hormone that prepares the body for a fight or flight response. However, when stress is ongoing, as in an abusive relationship, the brain becomes overwhelmed by this hormone. This can lead to changes in brain structure and function, particularly affecting the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. A groundbreaking study from the Journal of Neuroscience discovered that individuals with a history of trauma have reduced gray matter in their brains, especially in areas related to stress and emotion. This means that their brains are less able to process emotional experiences in a healthy way. It's as if the emotional centers of their brain become less efficient at doing their job. The constant state of stress makes it harder for the brain to turn off anxiety. In abusive situations, the brain is always on alert, constantly scanning for danger. Over time, the brain becomes stuck in this heightened state of awareness, leading to chronic anxiety and hypervigilance. This is why many abuse survivors report feeling on edge or unable to relax. Interestingly, research shows that trauma can also affect the brain's ability to experience pleasure. When the brain is flooded with stress chemicals for too long, the reward system becomes less responsive. This is why victims of abuse often feel numb or disconnected from feelings of joy. It's not that they don't want to feel happy, it's that their brain isn't wired to respond in the same way anymore. Chapter 3 The Love Brain. Why abuse makes you love the wrong way. When we think of love, we often picture feelings of safety, trust, and connection. However, for abuse survivors, love can become confused with pain, control, or fear. Abuse changes how the brain processes attachment, leading to unhealthy relationship patterns. In abusive situations, the brain's reward system becomes closely linked to fear and survival, instead of trust and safety. Studies have shown that when individuals are constantly exposed to abuse, their brain starts to associate love with distress. The Journal of Personality and Social Psychology published research that suggests survivors of abuse are more likely to stay in toxic relationships because their brains have learned to crave the emotional highs and lows that come with abuse. This is often referred to as trauma bonding, where a person becomes emotionally attached to their abuser despite the harm. One interesting fact is that the brain's attachment system, which helps us form close bonds, can become dysregulated after abuse. This can result in feelings of anxiety or insecurity when it comes to love and relationships. You may find yourself constantly questioning if your partner truly loves you or if they will hurt you. This is because the brain's wiring for attachment has been distorted by the abuse. Over time, abuse can lead to a distorted view of self-worth and love. Victims may believe that they don't deserve better or that love can only come through sacrifice or pain. This is why breaking the cycle of abuse is so difficult. It requires rewiring how the brain perceives love and attachment. Through therapy, self-care, and healthy relationship models, it's possible to retrain the brain to understand love as something nurturing and fulfilling. If you're finding this content helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful tips on healing and reclaiming your happiness. Chapter 4 Mind Games. The psychological terrors you don't see coming. Abuse is often more than just physical harm, it's also a psychological war. Manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional control are some of the most insidious tactics used by abusers. These tactics leave lasting scars on the brain, especially when it comes to trust and self-perception. Gaslighting, for instance, can make you doubt your own reality. It's when your abuser tries to convince you that your feelings, memories, or perceptions are wrong, even when you know they're not. Research from psychological science shows that chronic exposure to gaslighting leads to cognitive dissonance, a mental state where your thoughts and beliefs clash with what you're being told. This confusion can wear down your ability to trust yourself. Over time, you may begin to second-guess your intuition and feel disconnected from your own feelings and thoughts. This is why many survivors of emotional abuse experience chronic self-doubt and insecurity. One of the scariest things about mind games is how they lead to emotional numbness. When you're constantly manipulated, your brain becomes so used to emotional chaos that it becomes hard to feel anything at all. Studies have found that the constant emotional roller coaster can desensitize the brain's emotional centers, making it difficult to experience joy or love in a healthy way. But there's hope. Rebuilding trust in yourself is key. Therapy, mindfulness, and journaling are effective ways to combat this brain fog. These tools help you reconnect with your true self and separate your emotions from the false beliefs planted by the abuser. Healing is about remembering who you really are, outside of the manipulation. Chapter 5 From Fight or Flight to Freeze. The neuroscience of trauma responses. When abuse occurs, the brain's natural response is to protect you. This often means activating the fight or flight response, which is designed to help you survive dangerous situations. However, in abusive relationships, this response becomes overused and distorted. As a result, some victims may end up in the freeze response, a state of paralysis where they feel stuck and unable to act. The American Journal of Psychiatry has conducted studies showing that long-term exposure to trauma can make the brain hyper-reactive to stress. Over time, the brain's natural fight or flight mechanisms become less effective, and individuals may experience dissociation, a feeling of being disconnected from their body or reality. This can make it hard to escape from an abusive situation because your brain is simply too overwhelmed to take action. Interestingly, trauma can change the way your brain processes danger. In a study published in Psychological Medicine, it was found that survivors of abuse have heightened activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, even in non-threatening situations. This means that things that once seemed harmless, like a raised voice or an argument, can trigger intense fear responses. It's important to recognize when you're in this survival mode. The first step is awareness. Recognize when you're frozen and learn strategies to regain control. Deep breathing, grounding techniques, and mindfulness exercises can help retrain the brain to respond more calmly to stress. Over time, these practices help to rewire the brain's response to danger, allowing you to break free from the freeze response. Chapter 6: Rebuilding Love: How Healing Your Brain Brings You True Happiness. Healing from abuse is a journey, and the first step is understanding how abuse has affected your brain. The good news is that the brain is capable of change. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This means that even if abuse has rewired your brain, it's still possible to heal and rebuild your emotional health. A study from Frontiers in Psychology found that therapy can help the brain rewire itself, even in cases of severe trauma. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, in particular, has shown to be highly effective in helping people change negative thought patterns that arise from abuse. CBT teaches you to recognize harmful thoughts and replace them with healthier, more rational beliefs. Over time, this can help reduce anxiety and depression caused by trauma. Another effective healing strategy is mindfulness. Mindfulness practices, such as meditation, can help calm the overactive amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear. According to research from the Journal of Clinical Psychology, regular mindfulness practice helps reduce the emotional intensity of stress and trauma, allowing you to process emotions without feeling overwhelmed. Self-compassion is also an important part of healing. Many survivors of abuse struggle with feelings of guilt or shame. Understanding that abuse was never their fault is key. Dr. Kristen Neff, a leading researcher on self-compassion, writes in her book Self-Compassion that showing yourself kindness, rather than criticism, is vital for emotional healing. Being gentle with yourself allows your brain to repair itself and move forward. Surrounding yourself with a support system is another crucial factor. Social connections are important for mental health, especially when healing from abuse. Research from Psychology Today suggests that strong social support can reduce the effects of trauma and help you rebuild trust in others. Whether through friends, family, or a therapist, finding people who truly care about you helps restore your faith in love and connection. Healing isn't easy, but it's possible. The brain can recover from trauma and begin to embrace healthy love once again. Taking small steps every day, through therapy, mindfulness, and self-compassion, can lead to a brighter, healthier future. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with others who may benefit from this healing journey. Together, we can break free from the past and build a future filled with love and happiness.